the Employment Minister for Labour, Jim Knight. Jim Knight, thank you very much for being with us. I've been looking at the comments of your political opponents, and they're basically saying unemployment and the economically inactive is now higher than when Labour came to power in 1997. End of story, end of government. What's your response?
Well, clearly these are a mixed set of results, Adam, and as you've identified, you've got
they're not mixed, they're bad.
As you've identified, you've got an increase in unemployment for the period December through to February, which is always a really tough period, and we predicted they would be difficult because that period after Christmas is when there's a lot of layoffs. You've then got the claimant count for March, a more recent statistic, which shows a fall in the numbers claiming unemployment. So that's why it's mixed. And indeed, the trend is 4 out of the last 5 months we've seen that fall in the claimant count. And that suggests, alongside 3 out of the last 4 months with a fall in unemployment, that things are going broadly in the right direction. And as you come out of any recession,
the experts say, I've been looking at why there's been a fall month on month in the claimant count, and all the experts appear to believe it's simply because the government has put people into training schemes. So expansion of training schemes conveniently round about the time a general election comes along, and the figures go down. But these people aren't going back into work.
No, I would argue with that. I think, yeah, the trend is clearly in the right direction. As you come out of any recession, you get the figures bouncing around a little bit.
Can you say how many people have come off these statistics because they've gone into training schemes?
I don't know the figure off the top of my head, Adam, but we've set up something called the Future Jobs Fund. That's employing tens of thousands of people, giving them 6 months' work, at least at the minimum wage, and providing a benefit to the local community through doing so.
So that will have tens of thousands of people, fall of 43,000. I mean, what proportion of those are actually going to training schemes?
Well, what I was trying to say is that some people might describe the Future Jobs Fund as a training scheme, but it's real work. It's a real job on CV with real employers, getting real training, a huge help for people getting back into work. And I wouldn't define that as a training scheme at all. That's a real job.
Well, the difference is, if you weren't giving the employers money, would they still hire those people?
Well, they may not, but that doesn't make any difference to the young person.
That's not a real job then, is it?
Yes, it is. It makes a difference to that young person. If they've been unemployed for 6 months, they've got nothing on their CV, they haven't got a reference.
If we're looking at the state of the economy, that is the taxpayer creating temporary employment for people. It's not a real job.
It's a real job for that individual, and it's what they need to get a permanent job.
Well, how long are they guaranteed to have that job?
And it's doing real work for the local community as well. And
for how long? How long are they guaranteed to have that job?
Guaranteed at least 6 months. In some areas, it's 12 months. It's at least the minimum wage. It's at least 25 hours a week, and you've got that community benefit. It's a win-win.
OK, thank you very much, Jeff.
Mr. Knight, good evening. I've been looking at some figures from the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, an impartial body, and they tell us this, that the total employment has increased in the UK since 1997, when Labour came to power, by 1.67 million. But the number of workers in jobs who were born abroad has gone up by 1.64 million. In other words, just about all the increase has bypassed domestic people. Your government has failed British workers. The Prime Minister's boast was completely bogus.
When I looked at exactly the same ONS publication that you will have looked at this morning, Jeff, it worked out at 2.3 million is the number of extra people in employment. And indeed, when your rivals on the BBC, Stephanie Flanders, did the analysis earlier on today, she said that we've created around 400,000 extra jobs since we've been in power since 1997 for UK-born residents.
Hang on a minute. I've got to stop you there. Since the recession hit Britain, 500,000 British workers have lost their jobs. In that time, the number of foreign-born workers has gone up. I'm sorry, you have let down British workers.
No, and if you look, Jeff, at the statistics that are published today, you will see that the numbers who are coming out of the jobs market because it is a difficult labour market are disproportionately non-UK born. But obviously there are some non-UK born people who are also British nationals, and we know that 90% of the people who are in work are British nationals. We know that that is a far greater proportion than the US, than France, than many of our economic competitors, and we don't do badly in terms of British jobs for British workers, but we want to do more. That's why I'm responsible for something called Care First Careers, so that we can create 50,000 new care jobs for young people from this country, because that's an industry where we've had a lot of migrants coming in, which employers need in order to be able to provide the care that our elderly population and disabled population need. But those jobs should be taken up by British workers, and we're doing the training to enable that.
Mr. Knight, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You're watching Randall and Bolton Unleashed here on Sky News. Coming up, our elections expert, Professor Michael Thrasher, on the